speaking of Grant, he comes to mind. Grant, Alex Hormozy, Ryan Pineda, all these cats that are growing up, and as they are building their brand, as they are coming on the scene in their online brand and their online presence, they are them. Ryan Pineda is the Ryan Pineda show. Alex Hormozy just popped up out of nowhere with a beard and a wife beater and said, I'm worth $100 million. Listen. And everyone listens.
Yep.
There's a lot of creators, myself included, right now that are they see what you've done and they see what Grant's doing, they see what Ryan's doing. And they're like, okay, cool. I'm doing big things in real estate, but I see the power of personal brand. I see where this is leaning and where this is heading towards. If you were to go back, this is the question I've always really wondered about you. If you could go back, especially in today's climate, would you hitch your wagon to a Biggerpockets, to a publication, to a HubSpot or one of those publications, or would you try to build from scratch as Brandon Turner if you were to go back?
Yeah, I think when you are paid to do something, it is way more likely you're actually going to do it. In fact, it will go back to what I said way earlier about like most of like success is just a mundane, boring thing. So I encourage people all the time, especially entrepreneurs. I ask them, what if you did it every single day for 6 months straight? Would almost guarantee you success in anything, right? If you want to grow your blog, or you want to grow an e-commerce, like what action or actions, if you did it every single day without fail, would you almost guarantee, you'd be surprised not to get it. So for real estate, it'd be like, if you made an offer every day for 6 months, I would be shocked if you didn't have one deal. We'd be shocked. You'd be like, oh, come on, that's a lot of offers. So the second part of that question though, is who's going to do that for you? Because I, as an entrepreneur, am not good at doing the day-to-day stuff. I'm just not. I'm not wired that way. You're not wired that way. Most of us that are entrepreneurs are not wired that way. That is why we are entrepreneurs. True. But I was not an entrepreneur. I was not good at it. I guarantee you I would not have stuck with it had Biggerpockets not paid me money to go on a webinar in the beginning and teach the stuff. Or if there was not that, this is something I'm doing, obligate myself to that. It's commitment. I am the biggest liar in the world to myself. Like I will lie to myself all day long and not feel bad about it. And I hate that about myself, but I just can't seem to fix it. So instead I just hack my way around it. And I say, okay, instead, for example, if I say I'm going to go on some podcasts because I want to get my name out there and I want to build my brand. And then it comes down to actually doing the work to reach out to podcasters and say, hey, can I be on your show? Or even if somebody asks me to be on the show, I'm like, oh, I don't want to. I'd rather go play video games. Instead, I tell my assistant in a brief moment of clarity, I'll be like, hey, just schedule me on 8 podcasts in the next couple of months. Now it's actually going to get done. Now I'm obligated to get that work done. So to go back to your original question, like I was not a good entrepreneur to get that stuff done, nor did I have the skill set to lead others to get those things done. Therefore, I do not believe I would have succeeded without going through the Biggerpockets channel first, without going through that fire and learning all these things like the boring things matter and how to lead and how to hire and how to fire and how to inspire and all that stuff I learned through Biggerpockets. Would I have done it on my own? Maybe, but I would give it a 5% shot. Doing it through somebody else getting paid to do it, I'd give it like a 90% shot. That's why I love internships. We do so many internships at Open Door Capital because I'm like I want people to get in there and do the work and figure out how it's done and then go do it on their own if they want to, or stick with me and make a lot more, hopefully.
I love that, man. And we all go through different seasons. And to that point, so Grant had already had some success entrepreneurially, and then Ryan and obviously Alex, like they were already where they had systems in place, and then they just saw the wave, and then they were just like, okay, let's get on our boards and ride this thing. Yeah. So it's a little different because you were still in your process of building yourself to become that architect, which we'll get into in a little bit. Yeah. But I want to go into that about transitioning your mindset from that level 10 to that level 100 with Jason. And I wanted to see if there's like an inflection point. I know you were on stage and you were surrounded by all these people that were doing all this huge stuff. And you were like, okay, I need to get over my fear of raising money, raising capital, all this stuff. You go from Brandon, that's the single family real estate investor, to Brandon that's now employing people for Open Door Capital. What was that transition like? And what was your biggest friction point associated with that, with hiring your first couple people?
My favorite movie, if I had to pick a favorite movie, it's probably Office Space. You remember that movie Office Space? Like it's like covers Bill Lumberg reports. Yeah, exactly. The TPS reports and Bill Lumberg and all that. Like for those who haven't seen it, the movie is about this like cliche, horrible cubicle work, like where you just work for this tech company in a cubicle and you have a boring life and your bosses are annoying and it's worthless work that doesn't mean anything. I was affected by that movie, and I was like, I do not ever want that. And so I maybe rebelled. Like, that's one thing that pushed me towards real estate, is I didn't have to have that. So then as my real estate started to grow, or as I aged and I got older, the simple revelation became clear to me. And I don't know if it was Jason Dries that said this to me, or if it was like in conversation or somebody else did, but basically what I realized is, as an entrepreneur, in order to obtain the freedom that we got into entrepreneurship for, you have to elevate your position and your leadership skills. It's very rare to achieve real big success as an entrepreneur without bringing in people and inspiring them and hiring them and all that stuff. Management is not leadership. Leadership is not management. Those can be two separate things. So today, I've got, I don't know, 60 or 70 employees. And that was probably the biggest shift I had to go through over many years. In fact, the phrase that Jason would use with me all the time is like a phrase from like war, or like a military phrase. And that is a cadet versus a general. I was very much in a cadet mindset for a long time. Like, I was on the front lines and I was doing the work. And he would, now, even to this day, he'll ask me, Brandon, is that what a general would do? Because what does a general do in a war? A general sits in the back looking over a map. They're strategizing. They're meeting with the president. They're going to a fundraiser dinner. Like, they're doing like these big high level stuff. They're not picking up their gun and unclogging a toilet with it. This is not what they're doing. So again,
I did it all wrong.
That.
You're telling me this entire time while I've been unclogging my tenant's toilet, every time
with a gun,
I show up with my AR-15 to
unclog
the toilet.
Yeah, man, you got to get out of that, man. You got to unclog the toilet with a map. That's what I'm saying.